Hello and welcome to a special episode of the SEER sessions. So we like to run these to talk to our friends in the Microsoft Dynamics community around the world. And occasionally we do a special episode like this one where we get lots of interesting people on at the same time to talk through a particular topic. So some of you may have heard of this thing called AI. It seems to be part of every conversation just about everybody's having at the moment. So we thought we'd get Fabio from Microsoft and Mark from Neural Impact, and I'll get them to introduce themselves in a second, to really talk about what they're seeing, because obviously they're speaking to pretty wide gambit of people in their day-to-day jobs. So with that then, I'm hoping people know Sam, but Sam, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Sam Donasiri, CEO of SEER 365.
And Mark?
I'm the CEO and founder of Neural Impact.
Good. And Mark will start talking in a minute. And those of you who don't know Mark, you're in for a treat. And those of you who do, you know what to expect. So that's good. And then last but not least, Fabio.
Hello, everybody. I'm Fabio from Microsoft. I'm part of the BizApps transformation go-to-market team for Americas.
Thanks, Fabio. So, what we thought we'd do is to kick off by having Fabio talk a little bit about Microsoft's vision with regards to AI in the business application space. So, if Fabio wants to, yep, there we go. There we go. So, Fabio, over to you.
Yes. Well, thanks, Richard. Thanks, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are. So let's talk about how AI is transforming our business applications world, and specifically as it relates to our beloved Dynamics products. And I'm going to touch on two areas of our business. One is more on the service side, and the second part will be on the ERP side. So I think we'll cover a big range of topics here. So I think we're all agree. Can you all hear me, hopefully?
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, perfect. So as we all know, AI is really accelerating all the services industries, customer service, contact center, and field services. And if you read any of the analyst reports, you see that just in a couple of years, most of the standard basic tasks will be accomplished by AI and the agents behind it, which, it brings many benefits to customers, but as well as the companies in terms of reduction in operational costs. There's some financial benefits. We're also noticing that companies are trying to now harmonize or unify their service infrastructure in terms of technology. So they don't have some of the difficulties of having separate systems with separate set of data and drive insights from that capacity. So the unification of their stack is coming really being accelerated by AI. And the third point that we're noticing in the market, naturally, is how companies are adding technology, specifically AI, in terms of expanding how they provide services to their customers, but not necessarily just adding humans. The interesting piece of that is, and the idea is for the human customer reps to be providing actually more value-added services to their customers, not necessarily just replacing them, but actually raising the bar in terms of how they add value to the conversation. But we're not there yet. So what we're noticing also is that we are noticing that customers, they are asking naturally for more personalized services, real-time responses for almost anything that they want in terms of all the requests that they have when they contact a company. But 25% of the companies are just not delivering the same capacity that is expected from the customer. Currently, at the company side, we're also noticing there's still a situation where service reps are being asked to do many tasks, using many screens, many systems, which creates, of course, many challenges, including productivity, burnouts. So that is still something that we need to tackle as an industry, and also how Microsoft is helping this specific side of the business. And the third one that we're seeing some headwinds is still because of everything that I described so far, the disconnected data, the separate systems, it's really hard for the leadership and the management team to drive the insights in terms of where they're seeing issues, where they can provide more value to the customers, how they can provide that personalized services that everybody wants. So one way that Microsoft is actually addressing all this is through, you probably have seen this in one of the other Microsoft sessions, but it has to do with our agents so they can really optimize business processes. They can help you with all the insights in the three areas that I mentioned, both in customer service, contact center, and field services for that personalized experience. Think about Copilot as the umbrella. So the Copilot is actually the interface that comes on top of the agents, and that's how you can actually activate the agents. And naturally, all that is to make the humans more capable, more even intelligent and insights to provide really great service, value-added services at a more reduced cost and in a faster fashion to their customers. And this is quite interesting if you think about it. And that's how Dynamics, specifically our Dynamics 365 service, can help with the continuous learning loop to make every interaction with the customer kind of a smarter opportunity for the customer in terms of services they receive, but also for the company itself. So from left to right, the customers can come in with their requests to the company in any channel that they prefer. Could be a chat, could be web, phone. And based on that information, the agents that we have in Dynamics, the intent agent, start realizing and understanding specifically what the question or the ask is. Even the sentiment, the tone of the voice, is something that they really need to address right away with a human, or it can be addressed as a self-service. Probably many people, I think myself included, if I can do it self-service, would be much better. So the customer intent is already looking for the information, looking for the solution to actually provide that to the customer in a very fast and personalized manner as much as possible. If that's not the case, then that call, the request, is automatically handed over to the qualified service representative to answer and engage with the customer. But a couple of things happen in the background. It's quite interesting. The case management agent already then opens the case, brings all the history of the call, so the customer doesn't need to repeat themselves, their requests, their information, their names, and everything. So everything gets automatically fed or populated to the agent, to really the human agent at this point, to understand what's going on. Not only that, the case, as I mentioned, is already created, and the knowledge management agent keeps feeding information to the customer representative so that he has the right assets, the right information to provide and answer the question or the request from the customer as much as possible in a really intelligent, kind of insightful manner. And if not just the case, but the other thing that happens is if for some reason this is the first time this situation happens, the knowledge management agent automatically creates the knowledge, kind of an article, if you will, of a library of information. So the next time the same situation happens, another customer comes in with that type of request, that information and the best way that it was responded to the customer will be updated and be loaded in the knowledge management library. And therefore, the next customer representative will have that information right away. So it's really, as you can see, it's quite an interesting opportunity for us to make every interaction, as I mentioned, smarter, to provide personalized, faster services to the customers in a much more cost-effective way, if you will. And just provide in terms of context, because I know sometimes Microsoft will have many platforms or many products, but as our platform, you can see at the top there what I'm talking about. Really, the unified service, how you can combine your stack, and it's all naturally natively integrated. So avoid the data situations that is struggle that we have to drive the insights, which actually naturally connected with our ERP as well. and our entire collaboration and productivity stack. So it's really a very powerful platform, and not many vendors, have this kind of capability. And everything naturally runs on our cloud, on Azure. So in terms of the security, the compliance, and all that comes out of the box. And we are naturally, of course, embedding AI and agents in every single box or in every single logo that you see here. Just provide one example to make it more tangible, more kind of a reality. One of a customer, Lexmark, they really wanted to provide a better service to their customers. I think we all know it's a very large company based here in the U.S., but they had exactly the silo in terms of data, limiting them in terms of the leadership to get to the insights, and also the customer representatives, and even actually in different areas. It was customer service, their contact center, field services, and even sales to have more of an optimized operations for their business. So what they did is they replaced Salesforce and Siebel with the entire Dynamics 365 stack. And as you can see on the bottom right here, the benefits that they had. So in terms of the sales order, increasing accuracy by 43%, the productivity in the call center by 23%, which quite interesting. And also even the field services, the technicians going out at 20%. There is a link once you get this slide with the full story, so you can really dive in to understand exactly what happened. And naturally, I want to also make sure that you provide just some pieces of information. We have industries, we have customers in many industries, and customers of many sizes, achieving very, very interesting KPIs across the board. So here's just a few examples that you see there. But anywhere from our SMB customers all the way to very large corporations using our entire Dynamics 365 service, and actually ERP platform for the wins that you see here on the KPIs. Flipping a little bit more on the ERP side, it's kind of a similar story. By 2028, so really just a couple of years, all the COOs, the CFOs, the supply chain management, everybody wants to automate their operations as much as possible, right? So leveraging AI and our agents and Copilot behind it to make exactly that transition, so that we can make the teammates, the workforce really focus more on tasks that will be added value. And that's where on the right-hand side, very similar to the service, to the CRM side of the business, more than 80% of the CFOs and COOs, as we talk to them, and also with the analysts, saying that within a year and a half, they will implement AI as much as possible, right? Naturally, many of them are starting with their best use cases, so that you can and probably even should start small, seeing where AI is going to benefit your company the most, and then growing from there. But it is certainly accelerating the adoption and accelerating how we're providing services from the ERP perspective. But it's quite interesting because on the ERP industry, we're also seeing a similar scenario in terms of the lack of capability of agility to make the changes, the optimization across the board in the entire supply chain and finance areas of the business, as we notice even on the CRM side, for many reasons. One is the fragmented processes, the fragmented data, the separate systems that people have, which eventually, of course, leads to kind of a lower productivity, lower response time, the agility to introduce innovation into the companies, into organizations. And that's where I think our Dynamics 365 on the ERP side, both for the financial supply chain management product and also the Business Central, they come into play because, as I mentioned in that platform picture, by having all the unified integrated data, you can really provide the insights and look at business processes across the board for your entire operation and see where you can optimize as much as possible, which naturally will provide accelerated growth through new operating models that you have, We see customers like Smart was one example, and I have a couple of others here coming in terms of how they are maximizing the performance of their business just by driving efficiency in every interaction where ERP touches their operations and drive kind of the business continuity. Because the last thing that we want is technology to impede companies to perform what they do best, is either to create products, manufacture things, or provide services to their organizations. And again, want to provide just one quick but interesting example. This is U.S. Auto Force. It's a company also here in the U.S. where they provide distributed auto parts, so automotive parts, and hundreds and thousands of them on a daily basis that needs to be delivered. And actually, their previous solutions, they were just not up to par anymore. By adopting the F&O, the financial supply chain, as you can see some of the numbers here, but they're really able to do much faster bank reconciliation. Once you see the full story, it's like they optimize like almost 30 hours every time they do a bank reconciliation. The turnaround time in terms of delivery, optimizing from the inventory to the delivery management, being really, really impressive. And to the point that now they can even do the invoice matching for 15,000 invoices per day. So I think it's quite another interesting, powerful story in terms of how AI and our agents are driving agility and process optimization for companies using this. And I think that's all I had at this point, because I want to make sure that I provide some time for questions. And I'll hand it over, I believe, to Mark now. But I'll be here, of course, to answer questions and have a great discussion with you all. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that. Thanks, Fabio. Yeah, we've only had one comment first so far. So if anybody else wants to put comments in LinkedIn, you just put it in the comment section as per normal. We had our friend Peter saying that we look like Ab Fab, which I think he's referring to the TV show. And to be fair, Peter, Sam has been known to drink champagne. So
that's Peter's name for Fabio. Absolutely fabulous.
Yes.
Well, there you go. He is fabulous as well. So there we go.
Thank you very much, Peter. Very kind of you, and I'll take a compliment.
All right. Sorry, hold on. There we go. Oh, there we go. So, Mark, after that comedy interlude, I think for me, from listening to Fabio, then I do think that business applications is a really interesting part of the AI conversation. We're not talking about writing emails faster or creating a photorealistic picture of my son riding a dinosaur or something. It's kind of all that stuff is cool and fun, and clearly pushing the boundaries of what's possible these days. But I think where you're able to combine business information with that AI and agent capability to really drive business outcomes, I think that's a really interesting, really interesting way of using the technology. And I know you've been having some really interesting conversations with sellers from Microsoft and the channel. So what are you seeing?
Well, it's a great question. We're seeing a little bit of everything right now. Before I provide an opinion, I want to provide a little context, right? So, Neural Impact's been around, I think we're 18 years in. We only work in the Microsoft ecosystem, and the majority of our work happens in the biz app space. And so, we've been fortunate enough to work with Microsoft internally and their sales teams for years, and candidly, probably all, if not most of the, high performing sales teams and go-to-market teams in the Dynamics community around the world in the biz app space. Right. But I'll tell you this, but the most interesting project that we did in the last 5-6 years was delivering 15 different how to build an AI practice workshops for Microsoft. We did them in 15 cities around the world, and there wasn't a biz apps partner in there. Right? You go back, 5-6 years, these are global systems integrators. These were neural networking companies. And what's fascinating is that the patterns and the themes that kind of bubbled up in those workshops have now hit Main Street. Right. So there's a ton of learning out there in terms of how do you position, how do you sell, how do you deliver, how do you make money with AI capabilities. But there's not a lot of that knowledge hasn't really landed in the community yet. Right. And my instinct is that the majority of it really falls into something kind of anchored in what Fabio shared in terms of this disconnect between the expectations that the customers have right now. Like, there's not a CEO on the planet that isn't looking at their organization and saying, hey, where's my benefits? Like, look at all these companies out there promoting all of these benefits. Where are my benefits? And then they're kind of looking down through the organization. And the single biggest challenge that's out there is how do you identify the most effective use case scenarios that are going to deliver, to your language, Richard, meaningful business impact. And so there's an over-indexing right now on the what, which is the product and all the agents and the capabilities and the infrastructure and all this sort of stuff. And there's an absence of focus on helping these customers identify where they're going to get the value. And I talk to partners all the time, and it's not an uncommon story for me to hear them kind of land on a use case scenario, start to get into the body of work. They've got alignment, they've got budget, they've got some executive stakeholder participation, and they realize, the data is not ready for this particular use case scenario, and then the whole project's been set back 6 months ago. Got to redefine and find the next business case scenario, And so there's my belief is that if you think about this whole thing from the customer's perspective, you've got three kind of primary phases in their journey around deploying any technology, right? Which one am I going to pick? How am I going to implement this thing? And then, what are we going to do after it gets deployed? And so the single biggest shift I think that our community has to make right now, and this isn't unique to BizApp's partners, but they're in a unique position to do this because of what they do every day, is to develop an inventory of advisory type services that they can offer up to their customers to go in and help them identify where the value sits and identify what the business case is around that. And there's not enough of that going on. There's a lot of focus on the middle, which is here's the tooling, or here's the agents, or here's the technology, the infrastructure, or the technology stack that we think we can bring to bear. Right? It's important. But if you don't get the first part right, you're not going to get to the second part. And then the third piece that is going to be the hardest, I think, for a lot of our ecosystem is they've got to come up with a new configuration or inventory of what we call optimization services, right? So the difference with an ERP or CE project is that once it's in, it's sort of in, and it's going to run for a long time, and there's going to be some break fix and some support desks help and that sort of thing. But really, the partner's in a reactive mode. And I can tell you from the work that we've done in the past with Microsoft's larger kind of global AI partners, the devil is in the details post-deployment. Like, you're going to get data shift, you're going to get changing business priorities, you're going to get new agents introduced into the ecosystem. There's a whole body of work that has to get done on an ongoing proactive basis post-deployment that very, very few partners right now are really thinking about in terms of building new offers. Now, I think these are high value, high margin offers that require skilled resources. So if you think about, that business impact is defined in these advisory service conversations at the beginning of the sales cycle, and they're actually realized post-deployment. And right now I see a lot of focus on the middle, which is the stuff that you need to implement to do it.
Mm-hmm.
That's really interesting because I think in conversations, and you and I, Sam, we were all at Fabio wasn't with us, but next year at Directions, and that conversation was happening. I'm sure it's happening this week at Convergence, where it's like, all right, customers are talking about it, partners are saying we should do something with it, but how are we going to make money off it? So yeah. I think that point of that continual delivery of services. So it's kind of identify where you can add impact, where you can add value. And truthfully, I don't think even those conversations are happening at the moment. It's kind of a CFO or CEO's like, we need agents. Great. It's a bit like we need a website back in the 80s or 90s, wherever it was. And so that conversation needs to happen. But the how do we actually make money off it? I think that continual delivery of service is a really interesting one.
It really is.
I actually haven't heard that one before.
Yeah, right. And so the reason that is so important, right, is because, we'll drift a little bit into the neuroscience of decision making, right? So our brains are pattern recognition engines. That's what they are, right? It's the most efficient way of understanding what's happening in front of us, and it's the most efficient way of making decisions. So if I recognize a pattern in front of me, okay, I know how that's going to play out. I don't have to invest a bunch of energy because thinking is calories, and I can save them, and so on and so forth, right? And so the thing is about, when you're buying an ERP system or you're buying a customer service system, the brain can contrast and compare one thing to the next. They can look at a Microsoft solution, they can build a spreadsheet, they can contrast it with another solution, they can contrast it with what they have in place, right? And that contrast and compare engine that we have going on, it can make an informed decision somewhere along the line that says, I know what a good ERP system or a good CE system should look like, and I know what the gaps with our business processes, and I can logically pick one of these things. And I can feel pretty good about that recommendation. Now, the problem we've got with this new category of AI is it's got no framework. Like, you ask 10 people, what is AI and what does it look like implemented in your company? And you get 10 different answers, and they're not even in the same geography, right? So the problem with this undefined category is that a partner could go in and say, hey, we developed these agents. This is kind of the right way to automate these various business processes across inventory management or across resource planning. And they don't have anything to compare it to. And so what the brain does in that situation often is it defaults to safety, which is a no decision. So my concern, and I'm starting to see it already with a lot of the partners that we work with as they kind of go into these early projects, these early forays into AI, is they go through all of the energy and the effort. They haven't done the right work on the front end to build out the business argument around this thing. How do you overcome the fear of something being a hard decision? You build a big value case that is so compelling you can't afford not to do it. But if it's a kind of a productivity enhancement thing, or you can save a few shekels, it's kind of, to me, an underwhelming business case. And then they get to the end and like, well, we don't really know. Is this really the right place to kind of stake our claim on AI? And you end up in so I think there's going to be a large portion of no decisions in these initial AI projects as partners start to figure out how critical that business process definition is on the front end. And it's because of the way the brains are designed.
That's a real problem, right? Because certainly from a lot of customers are buying these AI capability through, well, obviously we've got a heavy focus on Microsoft, but if customers are buying it on EAs or skis or CSP, whatever, on multi-year CSP deals, then no decision's not a great one.
No consumption.
It's sunk money, right? So how can we as a partner community help these customers actually find the value where they can get the most value as quickly as possible? I do think it's going to be one of these things where, the first one or the first two are deployed, the first agents, a couple of agents deployed, then people are like, all right, actually that was really good. We've seen the benefits now. We need more of them. So I think it's going to be sort of throwing that pebble down the hill, that first one.
And finding the balance, right, between, the majority of the partners that we work with are either developing or they're leveraging or they're promoting kind of, I'm going to say, kind of purpose-built agents, right? The magic happens when agents start talking to agents. Like, that's when you got the logarithmic jump. That's when you get the compound interest type of benefits from this sorts of things as they go down that path. Right. But so here's another interesting thing that we've seen in the ecosystem is if you think about all the different types of Microsoft partners that are out there and all the solution sets that they have, the most qualified partners to have the business conversations and build the business cases is the biz apps community. There is nobody else that is more qualified to go in and say, hey, we can help you define this stuff. And make no mistake, all of our competitors and every systems integrator on the planet is going in there at the same time trying to say, hey, we can solve your problems. But what we're seeing is that by the time some of these are large partners that we're talking about too, and they kind of step in, they finally go in and say, hey, we'd like to help you define, your inventory of candidates for AI agents and things like that. They're like, well, we've already had all those conversations. And sometimes those conversations have taken place with competitors or consulting organizations, but a lot of times it's actually taken place with the modern work partners that also service those customers. And God bless their soul, they're smart folks, but they're not BizApps partners, right? And so now the BizApps partners got to go in, and now they got to unwind what the modern work or the Azure partner has said is your AI architecture, your AI strategy, and then they have to get through that body of work before they can start, the important stuff, which is having the business conversations.
But that's the widgets conversations generally, right? It's like buy my widgets. I've got widgets you can use for this, rather than the business outcome conversation.
Yeah. But it adds a second sales cycle, right? It's, hey, now you got to start with, well, what do you all know already? What is your plan? How did you formulate that plan? Okay, well, that's not a business strategy. That's a technology plan. Then we got to unwind that. And then you got to convince them that, okay, we need to go down a different path to really, optimize the right AI project at the beginning. Because the other thing about human nature is you go into this thing, the whole company's looking at you, and you've got this project that's going to deliver all this AI value, and then you pick the wrong candidate, it doesn't deliver any value, or the data's too confusing, or it takes too long to do, or the likelihood that they're going to step into the second one really soon is low. So yes, the biggest business case is really important to justify moving them through the fear at the end of their decision-making process. But you also got to make sure that it's actually doable, and so it's not uncommon for the state of the data to get in the way of the project rolling forward. And so that needs to be prioritized in those conversations as well. Governance, security, data availability, data cleanliness, all that stuff, which wasn't as much of an issue when you were building business case for a BizApps project.
Yeah. Well, and actually we've had a comment about data. So from Catty. Thank you, Mark, for translating the confusion that every CIO faces. Thank you for addressing this. If able to demonstrate the high impact scenarios, and if the company has the data to support it and understand what it takes to implement an outcome through case study, you have a magical roadmap that CIOs need. Thank you. And she shouted a thank you. So,
made my day. You're very welcome, Patty. You're very welcome.
Yeah.
And the other thing, kind of key learning to think about this is from a partner perspective, if you're going to be making investments in agents, right, which is the IP of the future, you want some repeatability in there. And you want to be able to take this to the other customers that you have that look and smell a little bit like this one, right? So the need to get even deeper of an industry focus now is more critical even than it was before. Like, I can't even imagine a seller trying to go into an industry they don't really understand all that well, or they're conversationally competent, but not really an expert, right? And trying to build an argument that they're the company that should help them with stuff, right? And so that focus, you think about, well, what would it take to drive an inventory or build an inventory, really meaningful advisory services to help customers figure this out? It's almost impossible to do if you're a generalist.
Well, and that's a good segment, Mark, and I appreciate that. Good man, you've done this before. And that's where hopefully Sam can help with that one. So obviously Sam and I and the rest of the SEER team have been working with Microsoft on that very problem, right? Where how to identify those opportunities within a customer. So Sam, do you want to show what's been going on?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thanks, Richard. Yeah, thanks, Mark and Fabio. So kind of taking on what Mark's kind of mentioned, really, is it's all about having that conversation with the customer. And I think as BizApps, and I've been in that BizApps world for 25 years, we're very comfortable in our ERP or CRM conversations with our customers, and then we suddenly get thrown things like AI, and we probably stay away. And actually, when you think about it, the true benefits of AI, agentification, really needs a business conversation. So the BizApps community are probably the best people to have that conversation with the customer to build that vision and roadmap. So we think this is a transformational opportunity for the BizApps, traditional BizApps partner community to really look at their vision for the future. I can see a comment from Dario about the future of business applications and UI. Yeah, and I think that stuff will come along. How as agents get played out, and Satya made some comments earlier on this year around basically apps are dead, and we slightly backtracked on that. But I think where he was going with is in a world of agents, the actual user interface and interaction with a business application will change. But before we even get to there, I think there's a initial piece around talking to your customers around around identifying where there is an AI opportunity and having that conversation pretty quickly. So what we've done in conjunction with our friends at Microsoft is to build an application to help partners have that conversation with their customers. So really what we talk about, again, highlighting what Mark's talked about, utilizing what the technology that Fabio's talked about, is let's create some customer interest. Now, absolutely, I imagine most of your customers already know about AI, perhaps they're interested, but equally they don't know how to get on that first step. So what we recommend is, run an AI discovery workshop or a series of workshops. This could be, and again, I love the fact that Mark talked about, how do we build service offerings? I don't think this is necessarily a one-time activity. You could build a recurring model to say, look, every 3 months we're going to come in, we'll do a first kind of roadmap, and then every 3 months we're going to revisit that, we're going to re-look at it, we're going to build some KPIs, we're going to look at different parts of the business. This could be an ongoing operational managed service type offering you can provide. And there's many levels. There's governance, there's actually building things, there's identifying projects. There's more than just a one-time activity. So I think that there's a huge opportunity that will play out here. So yes, discovery workshops. We're all probably comfortable doing a biz apps workshop, and we might get a bit scared about doing AI workshops. I'm going to show you how we can do that in an effective way. Let's build up a series of actionable outcomes. Let's identify which ones we're going to start first with. Let's talk about doing some pilot projects. I'm very careful not to call them proof of concepts. The pilot means that we're going to actually roll out something that's going to be deployed and used in real life. Okay, and the pilot projects turn into real additional pilots. So that's what we want to work with. So I'll introduce the application that we have, Guide Discover Workshop. And the idea is you would have a workshop with your customers, ideally the subject matter experts, the leadership team, and you start to capture certain information. So in this case, let's talk about we need to identify the customer's industry sector, the size of the organization. This kind of allows us to refine the AI model that we have. That's the size of the organization. We can add some location information if we want. We can then really, this is where the biz apps team can really hold their own. We want to talk about business processes and pain points within those business processes. So I can talk now, for example, let's go to our case resolution business process. In this case, I'm in financial services. So let's talk about that in the customer services team. And perhaps this team is really focused on customer complaints. And we can probably add a bit more detail, but this particular customer gold lot, maybe they have 100, on average 100 complaints a week, and totality of effort spent on complaints is around 1,400 hours. Okay, we can then use AI to look at, give us some ideas of typical pain points in that industry sector, in that region, in financial services, in case resolution. And again, country differentiation is quite important, because if you're a financial services company in Europe versus US, you can have different regulation requirements. So different pain points may exist. So we're kind of bringing that to bear as well. So AI has offered some potential pain points. Okay. And as a customer, we can say, okay, which of these resonate with you? So we're not starting from a blank sheet of paper. However, we can add specific ones for the customer as well here. But let's pick 3 that may be pertinent, and then we can move on to the next process. Okay, and you can see here we've got a library of business processes, a whole set of them. So maybe let's go into hire to retire. So within my HR department, we've got so many complaints. We're having to hire more customer complaints people. So employee hiring and onboarding. So again, we can talk about volumes. So maybe hire 50 people a week, and in total, maybe they spend 500 hours on the recruitment and onboarding process. Similar process. Let's get AI to give us a starter for 10, as they would say in the UK. So we've got some starting points here, and we can add additional ones. So I won't do any more than that, but you can see the process, and you can see the library of processes that we have is quite large. And again, if you as a partner want to create your own, we can add those in as well. did a rough cut vision, but literally thousands of opportunities here that we can already work with. So that's all we would do in the workshop. And per se, the next thing we want to do is to kind of get a view of the existing solution landscape. So this isn't necessarily about replacing existing software or solutions. It's about maybe working with them, but some of this may drive into, as Katy says, if data is a real problem, the issue may be requiring a data fix. Either that may be a change of back-end systems and maybe fixing that data. So that's something we can identify as well. But here, we're just going to say maybe this customer's got this product called Salesforce. I've not really heard of it myself, but I've heard some people have it. We can put the number of users that are using that. Maybe on HR, they use Workday. Maybe that's in the cloud, and they've maybe got 600 users of Workday. So we can do that for all the system landscape that they have. Then going back to what we talked about before is, what is the data readiness? Again, we're not going to do a deep dive at this level. This is really to get that high level helicopter view of the business and where we want to dive into. So we say, okay, actually, they've got a reasonably good data, a set of data quality per se. So now, what we're doing now is the system is going to suggest AI opportunities for that customer. Okay, so we're not having to have our team members know exactly what's out there. I'm sure that they will, your team will have some experience of this, but let us use the engine to help us identify not just the opportunities, but the priorities. What are the quick wins? What are the ones going to take us the fastest time to deploy? So you can see here we've identified 5. In this particular system, I've limited to 5 opportunities, but you can have more than that if you want. So we've got 5 agentic opportunities here. If I look at the top ranked one here, we can see that it's going to a customer complaints agent, or using AI in that area, an idea of what sort of impact it's going to have based on data that we have in the LLM that we're working with. It's also showing where we got potential Microsoft agents in the Microsoft Agent Library that you can access. We're also showing the different Microsoft components. So Fabio showed you the huge amount of AI capability that Microsoft are providing. And here it really hones in on which areas you want to focus on for that particular solution. Right? At the top here, you can filter by quick wins, high priority, average days to add value, etc. So it's a really nice way for us to quickly identify those opportunities that we have with our customer, and you can have that discussion, and if you're happy with that, we can then generate an output that we can share with that customer. In this case, I've got a Word document that we can share, and this would be branded for you as if you were to use our application. You can see here, and it's output that report. So this would form the basis of your initial roadmap discussion. I know I've spoken to many CFOs over the past couple of months as we launched this application, and they just find this amazing. CIOs, CFOs want to have a roadmap when they're in their board meetings, their shareholder reports. They want to present that they've got an AI strategy. So this gives them that, right? And you as a partner can use this to build up your roadmap of work that you're going to sell to, right? And either that's a kind of managed service to build these out. Is it a one-off project? Is it beyond that? Is it a series of work that you're going to build over a 2-year engagement cycle? So all of these things are able to be done by the fact you've got a roadmap of work that you're going to do. Okay, there's more stuff coming here. We've got a huge roadmap in this area, but the key thing I want to show is we can do this in a very fast, effective way. It's a good opportunity to get in front of your customers. We've had literally hundreds of these being run by our partners already, and welcome anyone's interested to really investigate this further. I was going to pause there. Any kind of question from the rest of the team or any comments?
I would say this is amazing. It's a really critical product to drive that the simplicity and the ease of use to have the conversation with the customers. It's exactly what Mark was describing in terms of they're probably going to say no for fear. There are many unknowns, but so you need to find that use case that will drive the benefits that they want in a faster way, with many elements, the data structure that they have, the systems that they have. And by having a structured tool like yours, what just shows Sam, it really provides an easy way for partners to have the conversation with customers to show the value. So And even at Microsoft, as you know, we are leveraging your tool in many of our situations. So we see that the benefit of having a product like this in a very structured way to drive that conversation. So
Yeah, thank
clarity
you.
and simplicity. I think
Yeah.
it's.
So I think it's, we're always saying, as a partner looking to get into this space, building your AI service offering, reach out to Mark and the Neural Impact team. They're doing some great work around putting these packages together to make sure that you can have that ongoing profitable service offering. Use the guide application that will help you drive those in an efficient way. And then tie into the Microsoft technology stack. There's an amazing amount of technology that Microsoft have. There's a lot of templates already, so some of these things can be deployed very fast using the agent library and template library. But I do think as BizApps partners, in the next 5 years, you have to transition to an AI agentic business. And that is going to take a lot of transformation to really go into 2026 with a strategy in mind to get these things moving within your organizations.
Yeah, and Sam, what I love about that tool, right, is like the way our brains judge people, the way they judge organizations. One of the shortcuts or heuristics that it uses is how you do one thing is how you do everything. Right? It's not always accurate, but that's one of the ways that it decides who to partner with and who to engage. And so when you show up with an organized approach with tooling, with reports, right, with the predefined business processes built in there and the high probability use case scenarios are already embedded in that. You just imagine you're a customer and you get that experience, and then you get another, one of your business partners come in and they're like, hey, let's have a workshop around AI. Tell me about your business. Well, what do you mean, tell me about my business? Yeah, like what are you trying to do with AI? Right. And it's that whole, so again, that compare and contrast engine, they're going to look at that experience, which is why are we educating this individual or this company versus this other organization comes in with this structured approach with all of this information already figured out. It makes it very easy for them to overcome the fears and concerns about a project potentially not going in the direction they wanted, because an organization like this is going to show up as structured, organized, disciplined, and capable.
Cool.
Love it.
So with that, then I think we're pretty much at time. This one's a bit of a longer one than our normal half hour, but with this much an interesting topic, and with our special guests of Fabio and Mark, I kind of wanted to go a little bit longer. So hopefully everybody seems to have stayed on though, which is pretty good. So obviously they like hearing from you two. So with that, I just want to say thank you very much. As Sam said, if you want to reach out to us to look at the tool, feel free to do so. You can just use go on the link there to book some time with us. Be great if you did. We'd obviously love to speak to you. And I'll put Mark's up again. I've been a huge fan of the Neural Impact team for a long time. So definitely reach out to Mark, or if you're even luckier, Shaka. I would suggest working with her if possible. I'm not going to bother putting up the Microsoft.com.
Fabio at Microsoft. Everybody at Microsoft knows Fabio.
Yeah,
So,
he's part of the Brazilian mafia at Microsoft. So that's all sorted. So if you're watching this and you've been at Convergence, I hope you've all had a great week in Miami. I'm certainly not jealous of a week in a 5-star hotel in southern Florida at this time of year where it's cold and wet where I am. So I hope you've all enjoyed this hopefully informative session with us all. And I just want to wish everybody a happy holidays, happy Christmas, happy Hanukkah, whatever you are in the world. And here's to a happy, healthy 2026. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Richard.